ask a quick question here? And benchmarking these projects against, I'm sure at the time everybody was asking you about the dire wolf thing.
Yeah.
And I know Joe and I have discussed this, and I'm vague on the details now, but I remember at the time reading some of the commentary and listening to interviews and going, this is a marketing stunt, because based on the way they've described it, I'm of the firm opinion that that is not a dire wolf.
You're correct.
The way they've broken it down, and I'm like, no.
You're correct. Yes.
So whereas this is actually involving sourcing primary material.
Well, so was the direwolf, though.
So was it?
Can you explain the difference between the two?
So, to my understanding, what they did is they made genome edits, right, in a normal wolf to give it dire wolf features.
Oh,
Yes.
right.
Yeah.
So they took an existing wolf and the eggs probably of an existing wolf, and then they made these particular mutations and genetic changes that are found or were found in dire wolves, and then dire wolfed a real wolf in a way, right? And so that, in a way that's exactly sort of what we have done. We've done with the mammoth meatball. As well as with the T-Rex. It's kind of similar, right? Because not the entire organism is T-Rex, or the entire bag is not T-Rex. The entire meatball is not mammoth. There's another cell involved, right? In one case, a sheep stem cell, in the other case, a chicken skin cell. So if you see the dire wolf as the skin cell, right, or the normal wolf as the skin cell, and you then mess with the genome and you change the genes in such a way that they start to look like like dire wolf genes, then what you get out on the offspring is going to look like a dire wolf, and that's exactly what they saw. So it's kind of what we did, but then in a living organism, I guess. Yeah, but it's not a dire wolf, right? Mm-hmm. A dire wolf would be. And a real mammoth would be if you would take a cell from one of those frozen mammoths, right, that has been frozen for 30,000 years, and you would be able to revive it in a dish, and and you could make it grow, or you could take the nucleus where all the DNA genetic information lives, and you could take that out and put it, for example, in a skin cell of a mammoth, of an elephant, I should say, of an elephant. So now you have the cell of an elephant, but now all of the DNA will come from the mammoth that was frozen in the tundra in Siberia. Now, if you would reprogram that cell back to a stem cell or to an egg and a sperm, or you could make, and you would implant that artificially created embryo in an elephant or elephants, you probably need hundreds of them, then you might get one real mammoth out on the other side, right? So that's the difference between messing with the DNA of an existing species to make it look more like a mammoth or a dire wolf, or taking all of the DNA of a mammoth and making an entirely new organism out of that.
Right. Is that at the moment, is that theoretically possible, or is that possible right now?
No, that's now possible. That's possible.
And this is crazy because we've gotten very granular very quickly, but Jurassic Park, which was one of my favorite movies, that's possible.
Yep, that is possible.
Whoa, hold on. It's possible for certain species, like species that have been preserved well, or it's possible for anything that we can find some level of something. So like a T-Rex collagen, we could make a huge chicken that would look like a T-Rex, and we could edit the DNA of the chicken and we get a T-Rexy looking thing.
But you see, you've identified the problem here, right? Right? Is that a chicken is not as big as a T-Rex.
These little jacked kids walking around, flipping cars, chasing people.
I can hear KFC knocking at the door, go like, you get some pretty big drumsticks out of those. No, but that is exactly the problem with mammoths and with T-Rexes and other big species, right? There's nobody to carry these things to term. I mean, a T-Rex is probably an egg, right? But at the same time, to change a chicken to a T-Rex, that would be absolutely impossible. There's too many genes that are different, right? So to de-extinct a T-Rex, you would need, like in Jurassic Park, you would need to get
frog.
A blood cell that is totally from the T-Rex, and then you would have to make sure you would have to be super lucky that all the DNA is still intact. Then you can either sequence it and synthesize it, that you can do it now these days, or take that DNA and put it in a fresh cell, and then now you have captured the DNA from the T-Rex. Now you need to start making eggs and sperm, or to make an artificial embryo out of that. And now you need to somehow find a way to keep that embryo alive outside of a T-Rex environment or outside of an animal like a mammoth. But to tell you the truth, I don't know how T-Rexes were raising their kids. I suspect it's like all these lizards, right? They just laid eggs and they hatch and then they're on their own, right? So maybe with a T-Rex eventually it would be possible to just to make eggs and hatch them.
No way.
Yeah, if you would have intact DNA from any species, you can do that. Yes.
Well, I think that would silence the dinosaur non-believers. If you're like, nah, I still don't believe. You're like,
I don't know what you mean. No, that's